moving forward to the next session, indulge in the world where innovation meets runway elegance. Explore the fusion of creativity and legal finesse in the captivating realm of protect in style. For this session, I would like to introduce Mr. Safir Anand, Senior Partner, Anand and Anand. Accredited as one of India's top IP attorney, Safir Anand is a senior partner and head of trademarks, commercials, and contractual IP at Anand and Anand with over 25 years of experience. Safir's effort to bring about educational revolution in IP in the country in the fashion industry have also resulted in the firm being awarded the recognition of Luxury Law Firm of the Year, independent from the Luxury Law Alliance in the year 2020 and again in 2022. Safir has also been on the board of Fashion Design Council of India, India's apex fashion body. He is also a contributor to the international book on fashion law and franchise law. He has also captured success journey of almost 70 brands through IP. The result of this has been compiled in the form of a book, Chrysalis. The book has had a successful launch at the extreme prestigious Jaipur Literature Festival. Mr. Safir Anand, to the stage.
Hi, good morning to all of you. And like my previous panel was wishing you Happy New Year, so I think I should continue the tradition. Although in a busy life, when you are 7 days down the new year, you have already sort of moved on and, it becomes like almost the end of the month. So I've had the fortune of multiple roles in fashion. And what I'm trying to do today is to share the wisdom, if I was to call it, of the multiple roles. I have been an observer of fashion, which means that I've been a consumer of fashion for a long time, and I used to read a lot about fashion. It was very exciting for me to find that some of these fashion designers have the persona equivalent to actors. When they go on the roads, they are, sources of dreams for many brides and grooms, and they carry literally a wow moment with them every time. But what used to irk me was that historically, if you look at the international community, all the international brands have scaled up into a huge business, whether they are in terms of product extensions, geographies, numbers, volumes, etc. And I used to sit with some of these designers. Initially, I did not know them, but when I became a part of FDCI, that is the Fashion Design Council of India, I used to go to some of these guys and say, why do you take pride in the fact that you're successful? I don't think you're successful. So they would say, what do you mean? I would say that, you do sell your lehengas and you do have pricing powers and you do have social media followings and you do brand endorsements, but what is your balance sheet? And that balance sheet maybe looking healthy from an India perspective, but you're being very complacent and it's not looking healthy from a global perspective. So if you are to become an international brand and compete in a much more competitive world internationally, you have to go through an entire process of transformation. And being a student of economics, I pursued economics from the Sri Ram College of Commerce. I used to, and then before law, I used to say that, you haven't put in economics into business. And to put economics into business, there is only one tool. And initially people would laugh at it. Now they have accepted it. And more people want to adapt to it. That one tool is called intellectual property. So as per the study of wealth of the world, more than 90% of the wealth of the world is now in intangibles. And the faster the migration happens from tangibles to intangibles, the more strengthened the business will be able to gather, the more value it will be able to gather. So in context to that, what I did was that I put down a few thoughts based upon the diverse experience that we had, which included recognition, the kind of problems. I don't think the law in India on fashion is anywhere close to what it should be. It requires a radical transformation. There are too many discomfort points which put Indian fashion industry at a severe disadvantage compared to the rest of the world. And I just felt I will touch upon some of these. So it's coming there, but not on the screen. That's fine? Okay. Idhar nahi aana hai? Achha, there is no screen here only. Okay, fine. No, sorry, I didn't realize it. So what plagues the industry? We'll start off with what plagues the industry, because if you identify what plagues the industry, then that's where the opportunity lies. So the first problem that plagues the industry is that there is low industry valuation. So I'll give an example. Now, I have been sitting on the valuations of almost all the designers in India. That means almost all the Reliance and Aditya Birla deals, we were on one side or the other. And I found it very amusing that the designers would push me into the room and say, you negotiate. So I said, what do you mean you negotiate? They said, we really don't know. Some of them were at the valuation table and some were at a pre-valuation table. For example, I won't name designers, but suppose the designer came and said, please do my brand valuation. So in his mind, that person is thinking that I'll be worth at least a few 100 crores. And you did the brand valuation and you came and said you're worth 25 crores. So the designer was like taken back, literally like shattered dreams, and said, what are you talking about? And our answer used to be, we haven't understood what is unique about your business. It may be selling today, it may have sold because of some reason, but as competitive pressures go up, it will not sustain. You don't have a backup team. You don't have a second designer in place if you fall sick. So how will this business sustain? So in reality, when you go overseas, you don't go to a store and expect Giorgio Armani to come and receive you. Neither does Giorgio Armani come to his own shows to watch, or neither does he bring a film star to walk the ramp and say, look, I've got some Brad Pitt to walk the ramp and therefore my collection should sell. So the concept of the designers was the fact that they had very low valuations. And one of the reasons why they had low valuation is that they don't believe in intellectual property. Now they are starting to believe because they're going the corporate way. But initially they would say, we have made our collection. If the collection is good, it will sell. Once it is sold, we have got our money. Now, whatever happens in the peripheral market in terms of copying, etc., is of no consequence. Some designers, in fact, even used to say, why should we take action against somebody who copies? Because we'll give them attention. I mean, you'll say, but they're going to destroy your business. They'll say, but you know what? We have already sold. So the concept of selling was more like customize. That you had a wedding, you would make clothes for that wedding, you've sold that wedding, you're very happy with your thing, and you go on vacation, and then the entire problem will plague. Till the time it started hitting them that their balance sheets are not growing, and they need to concentrate more on intellectual property. So the first problem was no protection. In fact, you'll be surprised that until about maybe 5 years, that is maybe 2 years or 3 years before COVID, so maybe about 2020 or maybe somewhere close to that, most designers had nothing except a trademark. They had no design rights. They did not even know what copyright is. They don't even know the difference between design and copyright. And they would not know anything like a trade secret, an agreement, trade dress. They wouldn't know what to do with stores, with their uniforms, with their employees, etc., etc. Then lack of clarity on the nature of protection. So it's very amusing that even today, many people, I'm not talking about the very big names in fashion, but many people use terms like, I have patented my design and I've trademarked my copyright, and they themselves don't know what they're talking about. And when they don't know the law and they don't know what they have protected, how will they even enforce it? So if somebody in their office was vigilant enough to come and tell them that XYZ is being violated, in all probability, they will not even understand. Because if somebody says your name is being violated, they get very aggressive. That means trademark rights will be enforced. But somebody comes and says your design is being violated, the first question is, A, extreme, that means any violation is wrong. In some cases, the violation may not be a violation. I mean, you could have an inspiration and you could be doing something. So any violation being wrong is one extreme. And if you say, no, that's not enforceable because there is no violation of design right or copyright here, then the thing is, okay, abandon the whole ship, all or nothing. And that never works in any industry. And then there's a dichotomy between the copyright and the design law, which I believe is the biggest problem with the Indian law. Our law has not gone through a change. We are disabling the growth of our textile industry and our fashion industry in a severe way by having this rule that if you reproduce something by an industrial process, then your copyright cannot be, your design cannot be enforced unless you have a registration. And those guys are told, no, for the purpose of registration, you must file before you commercialize it. So the designer says, I make 200 designs. I don't know which ones are going to succeed. And if I have to apply for all 200, it's going to be a costly process. And even if I do it, then somebody will use some technology or the other, and you'll say, but it's an inspiration and not a copying, and I will not be able to get my dues. And if I go to court, then there'll be delays because there'll be other side will come and say X, Y, Z. There is a problem in the way people function. For example, you go to a shop in Chandni Chowk, the guy is basically not even keeping the products there. He opens a catalog. That catalog can be on a digital mode like a phone. He shows you the product and he delivers at your home and takes a cash payment. There is no record of all this. So there is a big problem there in the thing. The fortunate part is that there is a petition now pending in the Delhi High Court that challenges the validity of this rule, that the right should exhaust if it is reproduced by an industrial process, and we hope that there is going to be a significant movement either in court or by an amendment of the law. So the other issues are there are no agreements. Now those agreements, they don't have agreements with their own team. That means they don't even know their karigar could have worked in the morning for designer A and could be working for the designer B in the evening. They don't even ask their teams, where did you make this design from? So it's possible the guy is sitting and surfing the net and he's found something, maybe he found a wallpaper. Now, in the mindset of a person, they think that if a wallpaper is used for the purpose of design, it will not amount to a violation because I'm making clothes and I'm not making a wallpaper. And you know how wrong that analogy is. No records are kept of what they call as those paper. You know, they do this, they take a brown sheet of paper and they sort of punch holes in it with a needle. It's called a khakra. They make a sort of a pattern. It's like a blueprint like an engineer makes. They have no record of that. They don't date it. So they'll have those khakras without evidence. And then the question is, if you ask him who worked on it, the designer will say, I don't know. Somebody worked on it for 2-3 years. I cannot name him. So without naming an inventor and not having an agreement in terms of an assignment of rights, how will you even go and file for protection? And that guy leaves. And he goes and joins another designer. Now he thinks that he means the worker. He thinks that he's got the rights. So he goes and replicates that thing and it creates a problem. And you know what has become a bigger problem is social media. Because now nobody wants a dent on their reputation. So designer A making a statement against designer B becomes an ego battle rather than a legal battle. And then people do the trial. The worst part is it's not decided by legal process. It is decided by who's got more followers and who's got more trollers, and then it becomes a sort of embarrassing situation. So that's about the casual workers. I mean, and also the casual workers mean they have the hardy workers. So the guy gets, in the wedding season, you have a huge deployment of people. In the off-wedding season, those people are asked to leave or work elsewhere. Now you're doing skill development, and that skill development should be entrepreneurial. It should be owned by you. But because it is not documented in any process, that skill development transfers on, and it's literally like saying the Infosys guy in the morning can work for TCS in the evening, and the IT industry is now raising these issues, what with things called moonlighting, etc. So there's less diligence on the source of the design. Like I told you, they don't ask for the origin in some cases. And then there's no docketing of this thing. Now the IT industry has gone through this problem. Even they would not document work in progress. Now they say, please fill up worksheets and please date them and please email it to somebody, some repertoire or some source of collection. And therefore they create a documentary evidence because, like the previous panel said, copyright can exist from the creation. It may not be necessary to protect it, unlike designs. Then, in contrast to this, if you look at the international fashion industry, they are very, very IP savvy. Every single chance that they get, they convert into intellectual property. There is no default in laws because in many of those countries, they do not have this problem between copyright and design. In fact, they don't even believe the fact that how could you not get protection if you've launched a product in the market. So that is where our country, and we are trying to make representations to the industry at to the ministry at the industry levels to say that you must at an urgency level start amending the laws. So if you look at some of the foreign designs, like for example, look at Hermes. Hermes, whether it is a Birkin or it is a Kelly bag, this is how they will graphically represent. So in order to show that it is a trademark, of course they can get a protection also as a design, but as a trademark. See, design and copyright have a fight, but design and trademark may not have a fight. So they can get a protection here, both under design and in case they miss the bus as a trademark. The only question here will be, does the public perceive it as a source of origin? As in, does it perceive it as a trademark? Now, interestingly, if you look at the Birkin bag, which is Hermes' bestseller, and there's a waiting of many years, the Birkin bag has no trademark written on it. There is no word Birkin written on it. And most of the products will have word mark or something written on it. It is known only by its shape or its uniqueness. And this is how they will graphically, so when they capture it, they're capturing the imagination on the right-hand side. If you see the picture, the imagination. Same thing if you look at the Christian Louboutin. Now, in Christian Louboutin, the very interesting part is when the red sole came up for protection, there's a difference between the red sole and the color of the shoe itself. For example, if the shoe is red in color, they can't do anything. That's fashion, that's functional, etc. So at a point of time when this was filed for protection, the objection that came up, including from the trademark office, that time they had not done the litigations, was that how could you have a protection in the red color sole? And we use the entire fashion industry to file affidavits. We use the film star community, the social media community, etc., to file affidavits. So women who are very fond of Christian Louboutin shoes said that when they walk and the foot is raised, the moment it is raised, you see the red color, and without asking anything, everybody gets to know it's a Christian Louboutin product. So that was admission of the consumer interest itself in the level of protection. Same thing happened with Adidas, it happened with Burberry, and then it happened with what is called as the epi pattern. Now that's a pattern of Louis Vuitton. It's an irregular pattern. It's irregular. When you look at a small spectre, it becomes much more predictable in terms of consistency when you look at a large thing. And Louis Vuitton has now been able to enforce rights. There are also ongoing matters where they are trying to enforce rights in epi and saying, you can make a leather product, but you cannot make an epi pattern as a trademark. Now, what should Indian designers do? One, they need awareness. So, for example, I have myself been conducting workshops, whether at the FDCI level or at the individual designer level, where the creative teams sit down and we tell them what they should do, the do's and don'ts. The second thing is many people don't conduct IP audits. So they don't themselves know what is the scope of rights. The designer will say, I think this will do well. His team is not looking at protecting, if that thing is to do well, what should he do? For example, I'll give you an example. Mr. Rohit Bal had complained that there was a lot of copying. So I said, do you have protection? He said, no. Then I asked him, what is unique about you? He said, what I create is unique. I said, but how is it unique in the eyes of law? He said, I don't know. Then he called a press conference on the eve of his fashion show at the Bikaner House. That means if the show was in morning, on the evening before that he called. And he told the press that this is for the first time I have protected my designs, and therefore now if anybody violates, I will go to court. And after that, he came and gave us feedback that there was no violation. That collection was not violated because he created awareness. Similarly, another famous designer called Anju Modi put it up on her social media as a watermark, saying that all the images that appear here, the images are protected under copyright, but the designs are protected under Design Act or in some cases as trademarks, and therefore there was a reduction in the level of copying. I remember at one particular time, I was at a fashion show in Pragati Maidan, and Mr. Manish Malhotra and I were sitting together, and Manish said, I don't need IP protection because I sell. And I made a statement, if you don't get your IP in order, your valuation will be zero. Now, to tell you how seriously he took this, at 2 a.m. in the morning, he called a meeting. And he said, please tell me, what do I need to do to transform this? For 3 consecutive years, he went through a metamorphosis or a transformation of his entire way of thinking. And then when the Reliance deal happened, the entire valuation in the Reliance deal, I was a party to the Reliance deal, has happened only because of the efforts that he made in those years in order to create intellectual property. Today, he has a WhatsApp group where an image is immediately released to us and says that this guy has copied, please take action. And if you don't reply in 24 hours, we get a reminder. So this is how the transformation happens, and when you become an industrial mind or a corporate mind, the effect sets in. I'll go very quickly because I've got a time reminder. So Sabyasachi is a very vigilant designer. He's a brilliant mind. Sabyasachi has been at the forefront of design protection and has also enforced rights. What I've referred to on the screen are cases. These are examples of restraint orders that he's got from court. And you know how well he's doing. He's now the first designer to even open a store in New York at the 5th Avenue. These are all examples of how he's protected. So he has design registrations. We had a negative setback in a case of Ritu Kumar where we don't have design registration and we enforce copyright. And initially, the matter was going in our favor, but the other side then came and said there's no thing. Now it's in a challenge before the division bench of the Delhi High Court where exactly this debate on the copyright versus designs will come in. Manish I've spoken about, so I'll go fast. And Manish has even enforced rights in Pakistan. He says that why should I limit my scope of rights for India? And some of the other designers are also doing this. Gaurav Gupta has enforced rights. Rohit and Rahul have enforced rights. And then this deal happened with Reliance, which was a, and it's happened with many other designers. So I'm just giving example. Anju Modi I've already spoken about. This is an example of her of the handle. Then Mukul Goel versus Union of India is a matter which is pending before the division bench, where this entire debate of whether the design versus copyright interface will be done away with or will it continue is right now being discussed. Copyright rule I've spoken about. Now this has just happened. I'll just finish in 1 minute now. Rajesh Pratap Singh is also one of India's premium designers. He has protected this selvage. If you look at a coat, I'm not wearing a Rajesh Pratap, but I have turned around and shown it to you. In that coat, that lining that you see is purely aesthetic. It's not a functional lining. It has no functionality. It is not to do with stitching. So that has been protected now, and it just got a registration. And now we are telling Rajesh Pratap to identify parties that are violating, and like the Christian Louboutin, we will try and enforce rights here. Rohit Bal I've spoken about. And the direct impact of all this is on valuation. In fact, having been a party, I, for example, also worked on the IPO of a company called TCNS Clothing. They have a brand called W for women's clothing. The entire valuation, it's a no-brainer, happens if you've got intellectual property. You don't have it, you get knocked off. You've only looked at in terms of inventory. Half of it is written as redundant because it will not sell or it will sell at a discounted price. You're given no credentials for your ability to do anything. So the last slide is emerging issues. So the first issue that is emerging is the rights in collaboration. Now, Nike will collaborate, for example, with Michael Jordan and create a collection. Now, that's like the film debate that you were having, where one of the speakers spoke about 50% rights, whether they're favorable, not favorable. Here also the scope of rights, because the collaborator can move on. And if he moves on from Nike, for example, to another brand, for example, Adidas, then the question will be, public perception will be, that's more new, that's more modern, the guy made a better choice, and therefore the scope of rights. Then the creation of works through AI, because now the debate is happening between Microsoft and New York Times on whether a work that is created by AI can be considered, and if it is considered to be protectable, the question is, what is amounts to fair use? Will it be fair in reporting? Japan is coming out with its own precedents, etc. Then the issue with termination of license. You have a shop that is selling, for example, Levi's. After 10 years, it stops becoming Levi's and it continues with jeans and other things. And then he gives the perception that this is the same brand. Because brand is not limited to title. It is a combination of several factors that are included in that. And then is the maintaining parallel books. This is a big problem with the designer industry. In many of their stores, they have people that they have only deployed who take orders. Like a man walks in and he says, I want to make a suit. So they maintain a different order book. And then they use the same outlet to have the product delivered to the guy's house, but it is not a legitimate product because it is not going through the process of the correct channels. And then the social media war. So now what is happening is, as an example, JJ Valaya was violated in a competitor who wore a look-alike JJ Valaya product, which Sonam Kapoor wore. So JJ Valaya then wrote to Sonam Kapoor saying, you're wearing a product that is not legitimate. And Sonam Kapoor immediately apologized and the tweet was deleted, or whatever, the Instagram was deleted. So now social media has started fighting. And now the problem with social media is, see, don't forget their consumers. They will start giving findings whether it is similar or dissimilar. So suppose they are, and because social media can be bought, as in you can have bot followers, so you can actually have a group of people. And when I say bot, I mean purchase wala bot, and also means BOT wala bot. You can actually have bots who come and say, no, it's not similar, and then you influence the entire legal process by coming up with your findings. The other changes, like I said, are workshops. Amazon has done a brilliant job by creating a brand registry. Intermediary liabilities are setting in. The courts are doing a fantastic job in terms of prescribing. Now even the government of India is getting after. Many of them have takedowns now. Instagram will take it down instantly the moment there's a violation. And like I said, the law needs amendment. Damages are actually going up. I'm a little surprised that in the previous panel we were talking about damages not being serious. Damages are going up like in a crazy way. I mean, so many damages happen even out of court. Those damages amounts is going into crores of rupees. If you take a situation today as an example that somebody violates the rights of a designer and Reliance gets in, Reliance is not going to sit pity and say, no, what, you just give me an apology letter and it's fine. There could be ramifications even in terms of retail presence of that particular brand. And then social media damage. So the designers must aggressively protect and enhance and create value. Thank you, and I'll now invite my other panelists for a more enlightening discussion. Thank you, sir. I'll just
Moving on to the second segment of Protect in Style, I'd like to welcome on stage our moderator, Ms. Namrata Pahwa, advocate from Chamber of Namata Pahwa, Mr. Mudit Kaushik, partner, Verum Legal, Ms. Aprajita Nigam, managing associate, Lex Oris, and Mr. Vikas Jain, founder and CEO, Acviss Technologies.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Safir, for that incredibly insightful presentation. I'm sure all of us have, it's gotten a little clearer for us as to the legalities behind fashion houses. Fashion law, as how I would like to define it, is an umbrella which houses various kinds, all the laws that a fashion stakeholder would require, from ideation to global domination, like IP, contracts, employment, legal methodology even, and of course dispute resolution and tech, amongst many others. Now that we have noticed that there is a drastic split between in the mentality of fashion houses. So there is on one hand designers who, as Safir mentioned, are either not aware as to what kind of IP to file, or they're confused, or they're like, why bother? Because there is anyway there's infringement going to happen at an incredible level, and how much can you actually stop it? But on the other hand, we also see people like Sabyasachi, who won the National IP Award in 2018 for his massive amount of filings in copyright and design, who are actually finding value in their IP and enforcing it. So today we'll not only be discussing the kinds of IP that one should file, but also ways to curb counterfeiting, the practical challenges that we face. Now I'd like to begin with something basic and something that we should understand in the first place. For instance, say a designer has created a lehenga which has like a 3-piece outfit. Now, when you go to protect that particular outfit, the designers generally ask, can I protect the outfit as a whole, as in a 3-piece together, or can I protect a particular element on it? So, understanding the nuances between what you can and cannot protect is very important. So I'd like to ask Aprajita to shed some light on exactly what you can file and the distinction between copyright and design.
Hi, so as Safir sir has already touched upon that topic, where there is an overlap between copyright and designs that has been happening, and which is very, very relevant to the industry today, which we are talking about. So just to give an in-depth understanding of where this overlap is coming from and why is this an issue. So just to make you understand the difference, I would like to quote this one line which is given under this manual published by the Copyright Office, which says that every drawing, so it's like every design is a drawing, but every drawing is not a design. So in copyright, you have various subject matters, and one of the subject matter is artistic work. And here is where the overlap happens between copyright and designs. Now, every design that you are creating, for example, a fashion designer, he wants to apply, say, for example, a particular design on a lehenga or a particular design on a jewelry. First, that design will be sketched out, a drawing will be made. So when I say that every design is a drawing, every design starts with a sketch, it starts with a drawing. Now, what you need to understand is that Section 15 of the Copyright Act, here is where the trouble comes, because it says that any kind of design which has been registered under the Design Act, you do not have a copyright on it. The other thing that it mentions is that in case you have a copyright over any subject matter, which is an overlapping subject matter between copyright and designs, in case it is reproduced more than 50 times by an industrial process, you lose your copyright over it. So here the issue comes in the cases of applied art industry. So in case your drawing is just an art, for example, you create a painting and you're just selling a painting, this section 15 will not pay any issue in cases of those kind of art. The issue comes when art turns into applied art, when the drawing turns into a design and you're applying it over another product. So for example, you create a painting and you are trying to put it over crockeries. That art becomes an applied art. Same thing happens in fashion industry. You create a design, you apply it on the jewelry or you apply it on garments. So when the art turns into applied art, this section 15 comes into play. Now, the issue that happens is that, for example, in designs, one of the foremost important things, just like patents, is that it should be novel. You should not have disclosed it before you file an application to protect the same. So in case you have created the product and it is already somewhere displayed, say for example on your website, or you have already disclosed it somewhere, you cannot now file a design application for it because you have disclosed it. Now if you want to rely back on copyright, that see I have my copyright on it, you can only rely until and unless that design remains, say for example, a limited edition, where you are copying it, like where you're creating it less than 50 times. So here the issue happens, which sir has already talked about, that there is a need for a change in this case, but until and unless that change happens, until and unless that amendment, that very much required amendment happens, we need to understand how do we protect it. So one thing that is of course important is that your registration is very important. In case you are a designer, first do not disclose your design prior to filing the application for registration. Another thing you may want to keep in mind is that until and unless there is an overlap and copyright and design cannot go together, you may want to consider for how long do you want to protect your particular product. So for example, you are planning to create something which is going to be a limited edition. You may want to think that in case of copyright, the duration of protection that you will get is going to be much longer than the duration of protection that you will get in Designs Act, because that is 10 plus 5, 15 years, while here you will of course have it for the lifetime plus 60 years post-death. So in case you're creating something, a limited edition, you may want to think about it, that you may want to go in copyright and not in designs until and unless the required amendment happens. So these are some things that you have to keep in mind, whether the novelty is still in place or not, what kind of product you're coming up with, is it going to be on a mass scale, is it going to be a limited edition, to understand which particular domain to choose while protecting your IP.
Thank you, Aprajita. Very interesting to note, but we've, like Safir also mentioned in his presentation, that we've noticed the mindset of international brands are different than to domestic brands. I want to know from him and his experience that how different are the strategies that international brands, in luxury brands, fashion houses, the strategies that they adopt as opposed to the domestic ones.
See, I'll borrow from some precedents, because if I'm able to narrate a real life incident, it's easy. Just last week, there was an instance of a very famous DJ called Khalid. DJ Khalid came out and he wore a jacket. And a very famous brand called Goyard tweeted and put it up on social media, tweeted, Instagrammed, that this is not a legitimate product. They just wrote fake. And you're taking panga literally with somebody who's got millions and millions of followers, who can really change the patronage, like what happened with Maldives yesterday or the day before. And then Khalid replied back saying, no, I bought all these products. I've actually bought the scarves, but I've got it customized into a jacket. Now, technically, there could still be a legal battle. It could be a situation where you come and say, but you don't have the right to change the way I show my brand. You can't take a Louis Vuitton wallet and convert it into a patch and say, no, I'm going to make something else out of it. But you'll also have to be very conscious of who's doing it, what is the intent, what is the ramification, etc. So that's like a reputation management. Now, having regard to the example that Aprajita shared, which is absolutely right about the dilemma in law, a very interesting thing is happening is that the entire fashion market is equity starved. It wants to raise capital. It cannot grow in terms of stores and others. Now, if you write to the VC saying, but your guy is copying, now I may not succeed against him, quote, but it is copying. He's following a wrong process. And if the process does not improve, he's likely to continue with this process going ahead, and therefore no value will be created because at some point of time, either the law will amend or the designer would have got a registration and he'll enforce rights. So there could be a negative impact. Then that guy, first of all, takes a step back because he doesn't get finances. He doesn't like that. I mean, unless he's self-sourced. The second problem that happens is if you go on social media and say, look, this is what I made, I goofed up, I did not protect it. But this guy has clearly copied it and he's made it. Would you like to be the bride that literally wears a product that has been copied, or would you like to be a bride that pays the price for originality? People are smart. They are not. They don't turn around and say, no, we like to do only copying and all that. After all, if I go to a literal patri wala and I'm buying a Louis Vuitton bag, I'll be very conscious about the fact that somehow if it is detected, my reputation could be zero. I mean, if somebody just turns around and says, you're wearing a watch, please show it to me, and it turns out to be a fake Rolex or a fake Titan or whatever, my reputation is zero. So that transformation is happening only by awareness. So the foreign brands are spending a lot of time. In fact, I just came back from Italy. I was studying the fashion market there to see how the trends are. And I just wanted to share a very simple example. The Financial Times predicts that for the year 2024, the fashion industry will see a slowdown. Now, the reason why they say there will be a slowdown is they say Louis Vuitton's ad spend is going to run into billions of dollars. The rest of the brands cannot cope up with that billions of dollars. So when they can't and they cannot portray it to consumers, how will they survive? They can only survive if they innovate.
True, but you're saying that they're more proactive in not just creating awareness about their brand, about their looks, but of course, curbing counterfeiting.
So, they follow two strategies. If you are a luxury brand and you, for example, find that the pricing is very high, you will have a class of customers that buy that, but there'll be a lot of people who cannot afford it, or even if they do, they'll do a sporadic purchase. So that's why they're doing collaborations. Like, for example, if tomorrow there's a Louis Vuitton Nike collection, the prices will come down. It will be higher than Nike, will be less than Louis Vuitton. So they're creating new segments. And in creating new segments, they're taking the collaborator with them who's got a mass market. So the collaborators' interest also now is to ensure that there's no violation. So they're thinking of innovative solutions to their problems rather than just going after every patri wala which is all over the world. And they say, what will be accomplished? The guy runs away the moment the police comes, and even if he is caught, next day somebody else will come. So they're changing the way. So for example, in a case that we did in the court, where we sued somebody who claimed to be selling legitimate products, we said, first of all, how do we know that it's legitimate when you're doing an internet business? Secondly, if the product requires replacement or repair, you don't have the capability to do it. We will not entertain him in the store because he will have no legitimate bill. So who will suffer? The customer and the perception. Change the paradigm of what is called as goodwill and reputation and make it more centric towards you in order to have more legitimate products.
True, I agree. I think the entire strategy and the want and the need to hold value in IP needs to completely change when it comes to domestic fashion brands and houses. Now, speaking about counterfeiting, Mudit, I want to know from you how AI and AI algorithms can rightly trace and curb counterfeiting and help fashion houses in the same.
Thank you, Namrata. First of all, as fashion industry is very dynamic and vibrant, and obviously one of the significant problem which they face is of counterfeiting, and the counterfeiting market value has now reached like $3 trillion. So obviously now the AI is coming in, and big brands like Louis Vuitton and Burberry have already adapted to it, and they have incorporated smart codes with QR codes to help their customer identify that the product which they have purchased is actually authentic or not. Now coming to the infringement, obviously the infringers are getting smarter, and it is now harder to identify what is a fake. When you even place like a fake and a real one, you can't really. Even if you see it on Instagram, a lot of people feel, even if they are like a ardent buyer or like a lover of a particular brand or so. So now, as I have already said, that the big brands have already like adapted AI to help their customers, and obviously now third-party tools are also there. For example, Entropy is there, which helps and which can help like big brands like from LV and Dior. So it works like a scanner. You can scan it. It asks you. It's a 3 or 4 step process. You can use it and identify if a vintage LV or a Dior is actually authentic or not. Similarly, Deloitte also has a AI detection tool which is called Killer Dupes. It's more works on a image based rather than a text based. So if there's a very distinct design, for example, a Kelly or like a Converse shoes which have a distinct design, so it actually goes and on the marketplace, online market space, and actually identifies what is a dupe on what is a like a legit thing. So obviously AI can help, for example, image recognition. So obviously AI can like scan through like millions and millions of images, which is not possible if a human is to do it. And text analysis also. Uh, uh, Obviously, AI can analyze like text and like social media monitoring also. Which, for example, they can see if a hashtag is used, which in a way could probably cause an infringement. So all these new tools have come up, and obviously I think AI is the way to go forward, and all these companies have already embraced it. And but obviously there are a few disadvantages also, because AI can also have like false positive. Also, it's very expensive right now because it's at the very nascent stage, and obviously the transparency, as in like it is not sure how an AI comes to a conclusion whether one product which they have identified online is fake or real. So I mean, it's a long road, but yeah, we have started on the journey.
True, it's an ever-evolving road for sure. We've noticed over the past few couple of years that fashion brands are using tech in ingenious ways to curb counterfeiting, to trace it. Vikas, could you shed some light on how you think tech is used, and fashion houses are using tech to help them?
Check. I think Mudit has already touched upon a lot of these aspects, and talking about a few things which Safir also mentioned. Like you created a design, but how do you ensure that you enforce protection against it? You may have also got a trademark or a copyright. So where is tech helping you is being able to identify the possibility of fakes happening. So we're seeing a lot of, especially online, post COVID, close to 30% of fakes are getting sold on social media or e-commerce for that matter, right? Or you talk about marketplaces, people set up fake listings. We've also seen fake websites being set up in names of big brands where the website looks very much similar to the original brand, and anybody trying to shop would probably get duped into buying from a particular brand. So technology has helped brands being able to identify such occurrences, being able to understand if that design itself is getting replicated across different, especially across online and e-commerce marketplaces. And we've also seen technology being used to identify listings within these marketplaces. The marketplace actually is a double-edged sword. It does help you improve and get the reach, but also means that sometimes you also would find people selling fake products of your brand on these marketplaces. So how do you bring down this listing? So we have tools, and of course AI, ML, and these tools are used wherein they go around, scan, and look for similar sounding websites. They also analyze if a product being sold on a marketplace or a website is actually a genuine product or not, through multiple data points. So we use data points like images. We could also use things like the reviews for that matter, the description for that matter. So a lot of these data points are collected and analyzed to help you understand whether what you're looking at or whether what a customer might be looking at is a genuine listing or not, or a genuine website or not. Plus, like Mudit also mentioned about images, right? We also heard Safir mention about how Burberry, has registered their image. So how do you protect that? So we have computer vision being used, wherein a lot of images are collected, And computer vision is then used to help understand if a particular image which is available, maybe on a store or a website, is actually a replica or not. So there is a huge advent of technology, and I would like to disagree with Mudit on one point though. It's actually AI, ML of late has become very affordable. A lot of companies are doing it. The fact that there are systems available which allow you to run these highly intensive algorithms, the systems have become quite cheap. So AI and ML is quite available. Plus, apart from that, we also see use of blockchain. So we talked about designs, and Safir mentioned about designs, right? Now, if I create a design, how do I ensure that I can prove the origin of it, right? So blockchain as a technology is being used to prove the provenance. So blockchain is a database, a distributed ledger, which is mutable, which cannot be changed that easily, and Bitcoin is a very good example of blockchain for those of you who may not understand. So blockchain is being used to help you understand where a particular product or a design originated from, and that helps anybody, for that matter, could come back and then prove the provenance and the origin of it, which can then also be used to trace a particular product to the supply chain. So we are also seeing technology being used to trace not just the product, but also help consumers understand the manufacturing of it. So we're talking about sustainability, how as a brand I can prove sustainability. So technology is being used widely, not just for detection, but also protection, where now we are talking about microdot patterns, we are talking about intelligent packaging, smart packaging, where packaging itself can be used. When a particular buyer or consumer, which could be Sonam Kapoor or DJ Khaled, when they receive the product, they can actually verify what they are receiving is a genuine product or not. So we see smart, intelligent systems being available and being made available to consumers as well. So in terms of technology, I think we are just getting started and a lot more to happen. Thank you.
I agree, absolutely agree. We've actually noticed, like you mentioned, where smart technology is embedded in packaging or maybe inside the garment. This actually helps custom officers also so much, so as when to trace and differentiate between an original and a fake. I quickly want to touch upon the world of fast fashion and how we all know the ill effects of fast fashion, from greenwashing to lack of sustainability to even labor issues, where we've seen Rana Plaza incident in Bangladesh and post that as well. So I want to quickly ask Safir, have you noticed any systemic changes within fashion houses where they're sensitive about these issues and making changes?
Well, yes, and it's come from two reasons. One of it is accidental and one of it is awareness. Accidental is when, for example, they have made products and they've called it Khadi, and it has not originated from the Khadi Institute, which is it's literally like a certification program. And then there was a battle between Khadi and many designers saying that you're calling your product sustainable or Khadi, but it's not Khadi. So don't take it to the Basmati controversy where, it becomes the country starts losing its importance of what is Khadi. And the second is more to do with awareness, where social media recognition, social impact of environment and other reasons is causing them. For example, the jeans industry knows the fact that it requires so many gallons of water to create one pair of jeans. Now they know that tomorrow there could be a boycott from the industry if those standards are not changed because it degrades the entire environment. That's more like a process innovation, which is also nice because now they'll innovate, whether they do it through nanotechnology or they do it through geospatial textiles, etc. Now they'll innovate, and that innovation will cause. So I've seen ads also of some companies saying that no, our jeans are made with less use of water, or maybe they don't need so many washes also.
True. I want to quickly also speak about dispute resolution now that we're approaching the end of this discussion. Aprajita, I want to know from you, we've seen John Doe litigations happening across the world. Do you think, or can John Doe litigations help fashion houses in India?
Definitely. So when we usually talk about John Doe, we talk in the context of media and entertainment industry. But I'd say that even for fashion industry, it's very relevant, because the nature of piracy is pretty much the same. It's so rampant that it is almost impossible to know who the infringers are. Like sitting in Delhi, you know Sarojini Market, you go and take any first copy of any fashion brand and you will get it there. It is very difficult to know the infringers all the time. So I'd say that John Doe is definitely a remedy which should be used by fashion brands. It is being used, but it should be used much more. More that we see it in the media and entertainment industry, but it should be used more and more. And in fact, it is not even important. So there was this case regarding the Ray-Ban sunglasses, where there was no immediate urgency for it. But then the court still awarded John Doe because the piracy was so rampant, it had been happening since so long, and it was to happen, it was to continue if you don't issue a John Doe order. So it may not always be the main thing, that main crux that came out of that Ray-Ban case was that you need not even have any immediate urgency to go and file for a John Doe. You can do so when you know that in case of your brand being infringed at a very large scale, you can go for a John Doe. So yes, I would say that this is something that fashion brands definitely should go ahead with.
So now that we've discussed litigation and prosecution, Safir mentioned something in his presentation which is transactional in nature. As practicing advocates, we've all told our clients and designers to please draft contracts, get into contracts, vet them in any which way. Even if you're not doing a full-fledged contract, write it in your invoice, have some terms and conditions mentioned. So Mudit, I want to know from you, what do you think, or how do you think that the fashion houses should incorporate? Because they'll be like, on a daily basis and a practical terms, getting into contracts with everybody is slightly difficult.
As I think Mr. Anand has already covered in his presentation, that a lot of these fashion houses and the big designers are working with on day basis laborers who just come in and do and design and something and leave. So I think it probably, as you said, that it is not possible for everyone to do a contract. So it is, I think, one alternative is to send them through an email or a text that whatever you design is our design, and in that way at least the message is sent. Even if it is not signed, at least you have, in some part you have completed the responsibility from your end and informing them. And I think for most of the people, I think the challenge that every time they work with someone, they don't want to sign a contract. So as you have covered, that some terms and condition, or at least putting it in an email, and if you can just ask them to say that I accept this, that would be enforceable and be considered as a full-fledged contract. So that could probably save all the paper trail and the effort of going to and fro and asking them to sign it.
I want to know from now, this is open to all the panelists. We understand and we realize that the current laws of the country are not sufficient enough to tackle all challenges faced by designers, artists. So now, Vikas, could we start with you, that what in your opinion should be changes, amendments? Can be small, can be large, whatever you think.
I mean, relying on laws and government, I think definitely is important and would be helpful. But I think as a brand, as a label owner, I think it's very important that I take matter in my own hands. So using like I said, I'm from a tech background, so I will talk about technology a lot. So doing things which can help you prevent counterfeiting or duplication of your designs, of your products from happening is very important. And I think, like I said, taking matter in your own hands, using technology to prevent counterfeiting of your products, creating awareness. I think one thing which we have seen, or not seen in India happening a lot, is creating awareness about the fact that there is counterfeiting, there is duplication. We've seen cases where, we're talking about style, there are a lot of cosmetic brands as well who do not want to talk about the fact that, their products are getting counterfeited. They don't want to create that awareness, and they're losing a lot of money around that. And the fact that they're also not using, technology to prevent that is also one aspect about it. So awareness, technology is what I would say is very important. Of course, hoping that laws would eventually help you out. But I think laws is a very reactive approach. It's important to be proactive. So, as a brand, I would be proactive, create awareness, use technology. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just like to add one thing. Probably, I think no one in India is like in the fashion industry is talking about AI as much as it is being talked about in the US. For example, now everyone is using AI to generate images, and also that is true for the fashion houses as well, because they use mood boards or rough sketches to have a finalized design, but obviously that could fall into an infringement. So I think some kind of a law or like guidelines from the IP offices or a clarity from court as to who would be the owner and what would be the like a ratio to determine whether it's a fair use or if it's dissimilar or it's an infringement. I think that would be helpful in the fashion industry.
So there are 4 changes, and I think that only if you do something radical can you make the industry do better. Now, if we look at history or we look at numbers, why does France lead in luxury with all the brands from a Louis Vuitton to a Dior? Because in France, if you buy a counterfeit products, you'll go to jail. You cannot have a setup where you say nothing to do with consumer. You have to change it from a consumer perspective also. I have written to the finance minister suggesting that in one of the budgets, we should introduce a counterfeiting tax. If you hear the $3 billion figure, you know what? You can reduce income tax. You can all be blessed with a significant reduction in income tax if there's a counterfeiting tax. And you will feel very good about the fact that you're saving on your income rather than saving in what is literally chori. The third thing that you have to literally do is that, at some point of time, guidelines should be issued by the Reserve Bank of India to all bankers to freeze funding of every business that is declared as a counterfeit. Because they are using money for illegal activities. How can you fund an illegal activity? It is contrary to the very system of existing of a society. Either you create a yardstick and say, what is going to be tolerated, what is for example, inadvertence can be excused. You can give them 3 referee cards and say, you're going to get a yellow card, you're not going to be terminated initially. But if a guy is habitually doing it, you know what he's doing? He's not just killing the brand. The brands may be very well-to-do. He's killing employment. He's killed skill development. One of the problems that India will face at some point of time is we will not have people who can even put a dhaga inside a sui. They will not have the skills. I'm just giving an example. The entire artisans lobby will be wiped off. Then how can we even think, what are we going to make in India then? If we don't have the skills, we cannot make in India, then we don't need to be doing contract manufacturing, which is not the purpose of a creative economy. I mean, we've written a paper for G20 saying creative economy in India, if it takes off, the entire collection from just counterfeiting is more than your projected rate of growth of the economy in a single year.
I think one of the most relevant thing that Safir sir just mentioned was about making consumers responsible. So this is something that is very prevalent about fashion industry, similar to media and entertainment, is that people do it as a matter of right. They don't think there is anything wrong in buying a copy of a particular brand, just like, the same thing happens with media and entertainment as well. So that is something very relevant. The other things that I would say require amendment is one that we have already discussed, the copyright and design overlap issue. That needs to be addressed with an amendment. Apart from that, even when it comes to trademark and design, though the fight is not as complicated as a copyright and design case, but even there is a fight, because when you see the definition of designs, it excludes a trademark. And there have been, conflicting opinions and a debated topic whether both the things can be clubbed together in a suit or not in case there is a design registration. And that has also started to act as a source of origin for you, and there is a trade dress. Whether, both these can be clubbed in a suit or not. So we require clarification over that aspect as well. So these 2 things I would want to mention where we require some amendments and clarifications.
True, I agree. It has to be twofold. On one leg, it has to be, the creators who are creating being more aware, being more proactive, being more intelligent in terms of their protection and enforcement, and of course, they can't do anything where the legislature and the judiciary are not leading the way in helping them. With that, thank you so much. We'll just have some questions. I'm sure this is a very interesting topic for everybody, so let's have it.
I just wanted to add one point because, you have to be that voice. Because if you join this cause and say that the government should impose a counterfeiting tax, now look at the situation, counterfeiting tax, for example, is 200%. 100% will come to the government because it's a tax. That rest of the 100, I'm saying the government should become a collecting society and give it back to the brands and say we are the country who promote original products, and therefore we are at a significant boost compared to China or anywhere in the world where counterfeiting happens, because we support our industry. In fact, we give them the money because we catch the counterfeiters. It can be completely different revenue model for the country.
True. I'll also add just to your point that we've noticed where design houses they think that it's flattery. They appreciate that there are copycats who are copying their design, and some actually even encourage it. So it's the dichotomy between what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing, that is one to decide for themselves. Anybody has any other final words? Any questions?
Hi, thank you for a great discussion. So my question is for Mr. Anand. Most of the examples that you've illustrated in your presentation cater to, I would say, they fall within the bracket of luxury brands. What if you had to give 3 tips or a set of advice to the small-scale artists and designers and budding artists rather? What would they be? Because they are the ones with restricted funds, and both for protection and enforcement.
We have to set up IP funds that fund protection, not fund just businesses. And in order to fund those protections, they can have a sort of tie-up with those brands. So it's a cat and mouse situation. The SME does not have the money to protect because his priority is salary and continuing with his business.
Correct.
Because he doesn't protect, he doesn't get a good valuation. The VC knocks him down, and therefore at any level, if you see the success rate, it's very low. If you do startup investment, you'll discover in 10 investment, 1 company does well. If the moment you have a fund and says, look, I'll enable you to protect, I will enable you to file patents, like, trademark and copyright and design are not as expensive as patent protection. Patent requires global protection. He may have a beautiful process. Yeah. Then he's able to create more value, and he can have a milestone linking of that to the VC raising or fundraising. Then it becomes easy for him. Second tip is you have to get into a collaborative mode. And the collaborative mode is not between you and a VC who wants return in 3 years, because he's just going to pass the money on to his investors and move on. He doesn't care whether you do well or others, as long as the basket does well. You have to create a collaborative mode. The moment you create it could be, for example, with students from the design schools, it could be IIT, it could be social media. What if you decide to part with a certain fee with social media? It could be a very small charge, literally like a rupee, where the social media says, I'm going to become the brand registry like Amazon has become. If social media removes lookalikes and counterfeiters, then the question is, how will you promote it? There'll be no mechanism to promotion, and then the product will not sell. So the counterfeiter will get hit. Right. And the third, like I said, is the government role. Because here we are looking at textiles. India has a huge advantage if it sort of revamps its textile industry. We have a huge depth. People beyond a Chanderi and maybe beyond a Pashmina, we don't even know our textiles. We discover it only when some designer brings it to limelight. So we have to create an awareness somewhere around the system.
Right. Thank you.
I would like to ask, Mr. Anand was also saying that, there are artisans who might go to some other competitor designer and design the same design at night, the one that he did in the morning. So what are your views regarding protecting those poor artisans who work under very, poor conditions and are not paid adequately? So what should be done for them so that they are also adequately, they are
See, my views are my views. My views are not their views, no? So I can tell them to do things. Like, for example, one of the wacky ideas, if I was to call it, I tell the designer that why don't you convert those artisans into ESOPs? Why do we look at ESOPs only from a corporate perspective? So if the designer gets to know, and that ESOP can be put in many ways. One is an ESOP per se. One is I'll give continuity to your next generations, because he doesn't know where his next generation's employment is coming from. The moment you create an economic surety and then you give him encouragement,
Yes, sir.
like for example, if a show happens, like in a film, we just had that film panel, there should be a credit saying that these are the guys who helped me create it. When they see their name in a fashion show, and you know fashion shows have gone overseas, etc., then they will have a sense of pride. So economics, security, along with the sense of pride can be a game changer.
And then they'll have that allegiance towards that designer more than...
And also,
going-
you know,
yeah.
awareness. Like, for example, I have now started working on heritage after fashion. I'm saying I'll go to villages and say, why is it that you are losing your skills? So they'll say, हमारे जो बच्चे हैं, they don't want to do our skills. They think it's not worth it. They all want to learn computer programming and all, even if they have to work in a call center. I'll say, why? They say, because they don't see future in us. We struggle. Convert that struggle into continuity. You can create a pool, like a society, and come and say, we have got a pool of artisans available, formally engage with them, get those people on your rolls, which I said is your ad hoc employment, and then release them, but they come from an ethical background. It's like a guy comes into your office and does an audit. If he's not ethical, your accounts are doomed.
What I'm seeing is, I would like to give an example which could be used here as well. Like we work with Coffee Board of India, and coffee is a GI product. And a lot of fashion products are GI products as well, right? Geographically integrated products. They get a GI tag. What we've done with them is we basically help them create a story all the way back to the farmer who's actually growing the coffee for them. So similar thing could be adopted for fashion, where you don't just talk about the brand, but also create a story around the artisan who's actually making it. And we've seen that work really well for coffee. We've seen that being used for tea, for Kolhapuri, chappals. And I'm sure, you know, going forward, even other industries like fashion could adopt that, where we use a combination of smart packaging again, which talks about the brand and also the journey that that particular product has taken. And that will be really helpful for anybody who's part of that ecosystem or the supply chain.
Yes, I was surprised to learn that in order to register a design, it cannot be published beforehand. I wanted to understand, is there any way of getting a design registration for something that has already been published and used? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. If you have any further questions, you can just speak to us later. But right now, we've been told to wrap up. Thank you so much.
Thank you, the panelists, for such a wonderful session. Now I'd like to welcome Dr. Amresh Panda to give out the speaker gifts.